Jr. also gets a start in left field. Remember, Siciliani played there last night. Mayberry Jr. tonight. Well, it's been an interesting season for R.A. Dickey. He is 2-6 and his ERA is high. You can see that his innings per start are pretty good, but his whip 1.33, too high for Dickey to be successful.
And we'll take a quick look at the defense behind R.A. Your Toronto Blue Jay defense, brought to you by Coors Light. And Ezekiel Carrera gets a start out in right field in this final game. And the infield, Josh Donaldson, who DH'd the other night, is back at third base. The first two nights, Russell Martin behind the plate. And of course, R.A. the starting pitcher. And interesting, Ron, at R.A. this is his third appearance against the Mets over his long up and down career. He had a relief start against the Mets in 03 and a start against them in 08 where he got the win when it was Seattle.
Well, Bartolo in the gum, that's an important thing for him before he goes out there chewing at that gum, getting it ready for a big league start. 9 wins on the season for Bart. No, you were talking about R.A. Dickey before. From people I talked to here, he has been leaving a lot of his knuckleballs in the middle of the plate. Really has been hit pretty hard of late. Curtis Granderson, who was 1 for 4 in last night's game, had a double off Drew Hutchinson in the second inning. Leads off here for the Mets against Dickey.
A 1 for 10 in the series for Granderson. Curtis has been starts and stops all season long. It just really, like a lot of the veteran Met players, just haven't been able to sustain a long streak.
You get the shift on against Curtis Granderson. It's hard to shift when the pitcher and the hitter, the coaches, and everyone else don't know where the ball's going. The umpire, Mark Wegner, tonight behind the plate, has always got to be one of those that I think in the umpire's room before the game, he'll ask, who's pitching? He said Cologne. Great. Who's the other one? R.A. Dickey. Oh, no.
I think it's
got to call the knuckleball.
It's got to be the same approach for the home plate umpire as the hitter. That's the hard knuckleball that we are all too well familiar with from Dickey. Remember, he was, when that 20-game year, a big weapon of his was that really no one threw the ball as hard as he did. But getting back to the umpire, Ron, as a hitter, I said you had to wait longer, let the ball get deeper. I think the calls for the home plate umpire have got to be a little bit later too, to get because the ball moves so late, you can't anticipate where it's going to go.
As the umpires they have tonight, Wegner I talked about behind the plate, Mike McClinsky, Mike Winters is the crew chief as Agares pops his ball up to right field. Called off by Carrera is Ryan Goins, who caught everything in last night's ball game, and 2 outs here for Dickey and the Blue Jays in the first.
And of note, this is the same umpiring crew that started this series, and the first game of the series, Marty Foster, if you recall, got a wicked, vicious foul tip off of his face mask and the chin. He is still not here, so this is the 3rd game that he has missed since the foul tip.
Lucas Duda pulls that foul down the right field line. All of these Met hitters are swinging early and often at that knuckleball by Dickey. You know, there's not many pitchers in the game that have revolutionized pitching. And he's revolutionized the knuckleball. Most knuckleballers were in the 60 to 70 mile an hour range. Dickey, of course, throws it at 80 plus.
Well, you remember when Dickey came back throwing the knuckleball, and particularly that year he had with New York, he had conversations with Phil Niekro, the Hall of Famer, Atlanta Brave knuckleballer. And Phil had a hard one too, Ron, and a soft one. He had 3 speeds to it. He had a real, slow, then a medium, and then a real hard one that he threw. And of course, the hard one he always threw in the inside corner. Tried to jam you.
Well, R.A. Dickey will tell you, if you talk to him, he will say he knows how to hold and pressure the baseball in a way that he can throw one to left-handed hitters that goes away, one that goes down and in. He has tried to perfect the art of throwing the knuckleball, but he didn't there as he walks Lucas Duda. See that grip he has, those two fingers on the ball, and that one just stays high and never drops into the strike zone.
Well, they also say over here on the Toronto side that Russell Martin just has fits and does not like catching the knuckleball and has had several pass balls. I mean, it's always going to be the pass ball and the catcher and the knuckleball.
Well, really, that's the thing about R.A. Dick. He traded over with Nickias and Tolley because he was his personal catcher. Tolley is no longer here, and Russell Martin's got to do the catching. And in fact, Martin had 3 pass balls against the Red Sox in his last start with Dickey. Martin's got 9 pass balls this season. That's top in the major leagues. And there's some numbers on R.A. And you're right, Keith. You mentioned in the open, what a trade for the Mets. Fouled off the end of the bat by Kadire.
Yeah, talk about maxing out on a what Dickey was going to be 38, and make a trade for 2 young players. There's number 1 right there, number 7 actually, Travis d'Arnaud. I think he's got a bright future, and Syndergaard, of course, another one.
Boy, that's a slow one there. 0-2 from R.A. Dickey to the veteran Kadire. Not called a strike. So R.A. changing speeds on his knuckleball so far. Well, that one stayed high, but Kadire swung at it. That's his 58th strikeout of the season for Kadire as the Mets go down in the first. Much better from the left side is leading off Donaldson, Bautista, and Encarnacion has the night off. That's why Justin Smoke is batting in the 4th slot. Carrera also batting in right field because Bautista is the DH. And there's the Jeep numbers for Bartolo Colon this year with those 9 wins. Key for Colon always is, Keith, is the ball down, and is he getting the call from the home plate umpire. He'll always be effective if those 2 things are working. Driven to right center by Jose Reyes, but Granderson reaches it in the gap and makes the play for the first out here in the bottom of the first.
A little bit off the end of his bat there. Ball kind of died out there.
When it first left the bat, you thought it had a chance for maybe a patented Reyes triple, but Granderson with the good speed and catch.
Well, Jose hit a couple balls hard last night, had a tough luck night.
Josh Donaldson, you see his numbers on the season. Donaldson is a true MVP candidate for these Blue Jays.
And the Mets had handled Jose, 1 for 14 on this 4-game set so far. And they've handled Donaldson. Donaldson got a big knock last night late in the ball game, but that was the first hit for him in the series.
That one fouled straight back. I was talking to Donaldson before the game. He's a real engaging young man, and he was asking me about the lineup when they're going good. What did I compare his Blue Jays lineup to? I said it's a little bit like the '95 Indians lineup, right in the middle at least, with him, Bautista, and Encarnacion. Lots of power from the right side.
Colon coming off a victory in his last start, and he struggled. He went 6 innings, gave up 2 runs, and that was 2 runs in that 5th inning against the Braves. Won the ball game 5-3, got good relief.
Bouncing ground ball to Flores at shortstop. The strong arm gets Donaldson just by a bit at first base.
And we will take a look at your humble and lovable Metropolitan defense, brought to you by Lexus. Mayberry getting a start in left field today. Same old infield right there, the big 4. They've been in there every day doing a heck of a job. Darno behind the plate, good to see him back.
I didn't know the Mets defense was that humble. Very good.
My underdog.
It'd be interesting if Colon tries to pitch Bautista in. He loves it in. Will he pitch him in? First pitch was tried. Colon tried to go inside.
Interesting what Colon said in the paper after the start. He faced 8 batters in that 5th inning when he gave up the 2 runs against the Braves. And he said he was tired after that inning and didn't think he can get through the inning. And he said he was lucky to get out of the inning. And he said I wanted to get one more in. So it was interesting to hear him say that he got tired. You got to be concerned. You got a 42-year-old pitcher right there.
Pop straight back. That's interesting thought, Keith, because you know the fitness of Colon is always something you think about, not only because he's 42, but he's such a big man.
It was a lot of work that inning, if you recall, and he was lucky to get out of it with just 2 runs against the Braves. So I thought that was a very forthright, honest quote when I read that the next day in the paper.
Good pitch by Colon by getting inside, but he's behind in the count. Seemed like these Blue Jays were hitting ahead in the count almost all evening last night. So here's a hitter who loves the ball middle of the plate in, and Colon so far is rushing him inside with that 2-seamer, trying to get a ground ball to the left side. If you look at the defense, Tejada's right on the line. Flores is playing to pull, and so is Herrera, and Duda's playing that hole. So they are playing him to pull. They checked with first base umpire, say he did not go, so it walked for Bautista. Well, it's Justin Smoke coming up to the plate. He was involved in that huge trade which took him from Texas out to Seattle. I believe it was the Cliff Lee trade, and he just did not make it in Seattle. That ballpark proved to be a little too big, but seems to have found a home here in Toronto. Shift is on for the Mets. Smoke, like Reyes, is a guy that hits much better from the left side of the plate than the right side of the plate. 2 switch hitters for the Blue Jays in their lineup. Bautista with a tiny lead at first base. Colon has a very good move for the Mets. R.A. Dickey probably the best right-handed move in all of baseball. Boy, I'd have to say that Jose Bautista has one of the most unusual leads at first base. He kind of sits on his haunches with his hands in between his legs. It's a position that you would feel like you could never, ever get a quick start from. It looks like he's going to do the lift, clean, and jerk at some point. A fastball in from Colon. That'll be an important pitch against the left-handed hitters. It's his ability to bring that ball back over the plate.
Going for his 10th win run. Bartolo. Outstanding.
Garrett Cole pitching for the Pirates. He's got 10. You'd have to say, Keith, one of the best signings the Mets have made in a few years has been the 2-year contract to Colon.
It's worth every bit of his $10 million a year. 15 and 13 last year on a sub 500 ball club. That's outstanding. And you look at it and you go, how's he get it done? You know, there's such a thing called a comfortable 0 for 4. And I've had a chance to observe him now, obviously, up here, and I know how he gets it done. He knows what he's doing out there.
Three, two outs. Bautista will be on the move. Fastball upstairs, right by Smoke for the final out here for Bartolo Colon and the Mets. As after 1 in Toronto, Mets are scoreless. Ex-Blue Jay Travis d'Arnaud up against R.A. Dickey, ball 1. It's interesting, Keith, that d'Arnaud was the hottest, I think, hitter for the Mets when he got hurt. And he's jumped in, and it seems like he's the hottest hitter for them right now.
He's hitting the ball good, and he's hitting line drives. He's good when he goes gap to gap. Hits line drives. He's a line drive hitter. It's going to hit you 15, 20 home runs on a good season. You don't know, but there's the trade right there, Ron. 2 catchers involved with Dickey.
Forgot that John Buck was in that trade. John Buck, who had the greatest April any catcher has ever had.
And then John Buck eventually brought us
Nilson Herrera,
right? And Vic Black, was it Vic Black?
Vic Black with Marlon Byrd, right?
That's right. So someone else besides ball 4 to d'Arnaud.
That's 2 walks now for R.A. Dickey.
All right, folks, it's time to vote for your Mets All-Stars. Vote 35 times on the 2015 Esurance MLB All-Star Game ballot at Mets.com. Voting is exclusively online and available on your computer, tablet, and smartphone. Vote at Mets.com now.
One before is up the deck.
I think the Royal fans.
Up at the plate.
You think the Royal fans got that memo?
Unbelievable. The talk of them and many of the fans getting different email addresses and voting more than 35 times. Obviously,
it's going to make a joke of it.
Kansas City Royals right now have 8 players who are the leading vote getters to start in the All-Star game. So it'll be the National League versus the Kansas City Royals. Really, that's what the game's going to be.
You basically, the fans don't pick the starting pitchers, right?
No, but
so they're basically picking the lineup out.
Picking the lineup. You know, I played in the 1985 All-Star game, and the San Diego Padres had the right fielder Gwynn. They had Kennedy the catcher. Lamar Hoyt was the pitcher. Steve Garvey was the first baseman. Craig Nettles was the third baseman, and it was a joke. As Wilmer Flores hits this ball right on the nose to right center field, but Kevin Pillar has got great speed, covers the gap, and makes the out.
Well, it's 400 feet to dead central. It's basically a can of corn right there.
Well, this is one of the moves Terry Collins was talking about, to make sure he had some veterans in the lineup to face R.A. Dickey. Mayberry's got good numbers against Dickey. And right line drive straight to Reyes, who makes a nice backhanded play. Good base running by Travis d'Arnaud.
Well, everybody pretty straight up. Little pull, and Jose didn't have far to go. Nice break on the ball. We've seen him do that more than a few times. Different color blue, though.
Ruben Tejada up for the Mets. I was saying that Mayberry had some good numbers against R.A. Dickey. I was completely wrong. 2 for 13, 2 for 14 now against Dickey as Mayberry Jr. Well, you had a feeling before this game started, I don't know if you did, Keith, that R.A. Dickey was going to have it working tonight. Extra incentive pitching against an ex-team. Probably hears a lot about the Syndergaard-d'Arnaud trade every single day, being in a Blue Jay uniform. Oh, there's a ball by Russell Martin. That'll be a wild pitch as it bounced in front of him, and he couldn't make the play.
Well, that's the knuckleball, a soft tosser here, and you get more movement. That ball bounced in front of home plate.
Interesting. Russell Martin's got that different kind of glove, the one we used to see Josh Tolley use. It looks more like a catcher's glove that you'd use in women's softball.
It looks like almost like a first baseman's mitt. What do they call it? They used to call it the pancake?
The pancake, exactly. What's interesting is that Martin, you're supposed to get on a 45-degree angle towards first. It makes it easier to pick the knuckleball because you can't get in the position to block it. You watch his legs and his feet. They point towards first. So Dickey's about to deliver the pitch, Keith. Most of the time, for any other pitcher except Dickey, you would present a target. He doesn't present a target at all. He kind of just holds the glove on the ground, and when Dickey delivers, then maybe he brings it up and tries to catch the ball.
Well, I think my feeling there is 14 home runs that Dickey's given up this year. That's a lot of home runs, and it probably gets hurt when that knuckleball's up. So it's a focus for him to concentrate and focus on keeping that knuckleball down.
3-2 knuckleball there from Dickey. That was a slower one, almost a get me over knuckleball.
It's a little different feel in here when the dome's closed, huh?
Yeah,
it was a beautiful night yesterday, and we're here on the western side of the time zone, Eastern time zone. Stays sun's up late.
D'Arnaud with a lead off second base. Tejada with a foul straight back. Well, this is what you were referring to, Keith.
Yep, right there. You can see he's close to leading the pack. Jared Weaver, of course, with 16. And the ex-Yankee Phil Hughes with the Twinkies.
CC Sabathia pitching tonight in a game where Alex Rodriguez hit a single in his first at bat. He's now 2 hits shy of the magic number of 3,000. Boxed around a little bit by Martin, and you can see R.A. Dickey check with the umpire First base umpire said no, so another walk.
It was actually, I thought it was a strike. He's hot that it wasn't strike 3. I think it just pulled the umpire because it did. That's just a wicked knuckleball, strike 3, and.
Well, we talk all the time, Keith, right, about framing pitches. You can't frame a knuckleball. So that ball, even though it's down the middle, impossible for Russell Martin to handle, and that might have fooled home plate umpire Mark Wegner. Dilson Herrera up for the Mets. Strike 1.
Herrera's just kind of treading water, getting his feet very wet here for a 21-year-old. I think he's holding up well. Really impressive in the field, turning that double play. He's so quick. Strong little tank.
I was going to say he's got the body of a welterweight. Another ball outside by Dickey. That's one great thing about this game. You see it with Jose Altuve for the Astros. Do not have to be a tall man to play in this game. Short can work. Joe Morgan did pretty well for the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah. Two-time MVP. Did he get back-to-back years? Won the MVP, Joe.
Good swing there by Herrera on the knuckler. Very interesting that Russell Martin is going through a litany of signs. You really have to think about. You really don't need signs with R.A. Dickey, but he will occasionally throw a slider and fastball if he's behind in the count.
Laid off that one nicely.
That's 2 slow knuckleballs by R.A. so far in this game in 2 innings. Fake the second by Dickey. Keep d'Arnaud a little closer.
Oh boy, Dickey's not happy with home plate umpire.
Dickey always wears his heart on his sleeve, and he is known to get hot out there, and he is at home plate umpire Wegner right now. I think it's a good look by Herrera, and I think it's a good call by Wegner. The ball looked away. Curtis back up here in the top of the second. Struck out his first time up. This is one thing you didn't see in the heyday of R.A. Dickey with the Mets. Very few walks.
Big shift.
4 already.
Big shift on Curtis. As we've seen the entire 4 games now in this series.
Home plate umpire called a tipped the ball there from Curtis Granderson to even the count. Good swing. When you're hitting the knuckleball, Keith, you say to yourself, oh, I missed one there.
That's the one that missed. You saw it tumbling. You saw the ball had a lot of rotation on it, and that means it's going to come in straight as a string. Dickey's a little begging out there, isn't he?
He is. Well, he's 2-6 this year.
This missed.
He needs a win, and this ball is off the plate. And a ball up, 3-2 count, 2 outs, bases loaded. Everyone will be on the move. See with the runners on. That's why Dickey's 2-6. But he gets a strikeout here with the runners moving. Works out of it. Dickey's going to come in to talk to the umpire. Still scoreless here at the Rogers Center. Chris Colabello up for the Blue Jays. Left fielder in tonight's ball game. He's been just about everywhere you can be to try to win a job in the major leagues. I remember my brothers used to tell me about watching him play for the Worcester team and hit the balls out of sight. Finally he got his chance, and he was hot with Minnesota for a month last year, but now it's caught on with the Blue Jays and continues to be hot for them.
Well, he hit 229 last year for the Twinkies in 59 games, 205 at bats.
Grounded up the middle, but Herrera is playing there, bobbles the ball, and by the time he retrieves it, Colabello is safe at first base.
I wonder if that ball hit the mound. Did he hit the mound and trick? No, he just plain missed it.
You always think if it hits the mound. I think there was just a little bit of a casual play here by Herrera. Doesn't look it into the glove, misses it, and once he retrieves it, Keith, can't make the play.
I wonder if the high carom off of the mound, it changed the speed of the ball that folded.
That's a good call. Russell Martin up. He talked to a lot of the people with the Blue Jays. When he catches R.A. Dickey, his hitting is usually not as good because of the worrisome nature of catching Dickey. Almost tries to bunt there on Tejada. There's a defense. Double play up the middle.
Well, Martin came on the scene in 06, had 4 good seasons, 3 good seasons with the Dodgers, and then just fell off a cliff. Finally picked it up last year, had a good year last year with the Pirates.
Blue Jays offense is very interesting. They are very deliberate, take a lot of pitches, work the starting pitcher. Ground ball to Tejada at third base. He bobbles it, so his only play is at first, and he gets Martin.
Well, it's always a tough chance, Ron, when you've got to field the ball and you got to negotiate the cutout where the dirt is. You just, it comes off the turf, and I remember in St. Louis with the cutouts, and Riverfront Stadium had the cutouts, as well as the Astrodome. It's a very uncomfortable feeling for an infielder, because you're, number one, you're playing in. When you have to deal with the cutouts, you're playing in, and so the ball's usually a hot smash, and you just hope you don't get a bad hop.
Do you start to see the baseball almost hitting the cutout when it starts to come to you?
Well, if it's going to hit the dirt, you just it's not going to be, may not be a true bounce unless you come get a short hop or play back a long hop, and that was an in-between hop for Ruben right there. Nothing he can do. He was playing in, and it was a hot smash.
Ezekiel Carrera, who's come in for defense for Chris Colabello in left field the last couple of evenings, gets the start in right field today with Jose Bautista, the DH. Well, as we can see early with R.A. Dickey and Bartolo Colon, their ability to throw strikes just a little bit off so far. Dickey you can understand. Colon usually is a command artist. Here's the low outside corner for a strike from Colon. Interesting that Colon, that pitch right on the corner he's getting from Wegner. R.A. Dickey feels like he's not getting it. The difference between a traditional versus a knuckleball pitcher. We talked about the Colon fatigue in his last start, Keith. Colon throwing harder than he's thrown in some time. There's one of the heroes from last night's game, Kevin Pillar, who was 3 for 3, including a home run. Ground ball to Tejada. Doesn't look the runner back, but doesn't need to as he makes the play at first base to get Carrera with all that speed.
Tejada looks very, very comfortable at third base. He's got good hands. He's a good infielder.
Tejada would be good anywhere, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he can play all three positions.
It's interesting. Before that pitch was delivered, Travis d'Arnaud sat inside on Carrera and the very last second jumped to the outside corner, trying to fool these Blue Jays hitters. As Kevin Pillar, I mentioned before, a home run in last night's game off of Akil Morris. Sorry, off Jonathan Neese. Valencia hit the home run off Akil Morris later.
Kind of feel for Morris, who got sent down last night after the game. Just got thrown to the wolves, so to speak.
All of us were sitting there having a glass of wine and something to eat, and poor young Morris was, all of his bags were on a trolley, ready to go, get in a car and go.
To Binghamton, right? They sent him to Double-A.
So he was being sent down, but kind of brought up.
So they kind of
Double-A.
Right. The carrot and the stick.
Right. You know, Terry Collins was talking about him today. He said, listen, no one wants to start out that way. But he got a taste of it, and he's going to go down to Binghamton. He's going to be with his teammates, and none of them have been to the big leagues, and he'll be able to tell them what it's like to be in a big league clubhouse. Ground ball here, up the middle from Pillar. The Mets can't retire. The guys with the ball and the throw. One hops Duda, who throws to second base too late. Pillar too fast.
Well, this look at the arm from Lagares. There's something wrong here. Look at this throw. Duda's late getting to the cutoff. I think he changed. I think he realized he didn't have a play at home.
I think you're right.
He changed his mind to throw to second. But Lucas has got to be in a position to come get that ball. If Lucas is in the cutoff role, he got there a little late. Now we're on AstroTurf. It's always a little harder. I remember a base hits up the middle. It's a long way to run. The ball gets to the outfielders faster on the turf. But he's got to go get that ball, and he's got a chance to throw out Pillar.
The problem you had there is that Flores was out in the outfield after chasing that ground ball, and there's no one covering second base. So it was almost like an in-between throw for Lagares. Again with a fake bunt by Ryan Goins. We saw that a couple times in last night's game. Terry Collins addressed Juan Lagares before the game today and mentioned that there's only a couple things you can do: rest or Tommy John surgery. So he did mention that the ligament for Lagares is compromised. Again, another fake by Colon to Pillar at second base. Pillar with 10 stolen bases this season. One of the fastest Blue Jays.
And again, you know, Flores doesn't have the great range. We've talked about it. I don't want to talk ad nauseum about it, but to his left on balls up the middle, he has a tough time. He's better going to his right,
which is unusual, isn't it?
Yes, and I would prefer him to have the greater range up the middle.
You see the home plate umpire Mark Wegner is screaming at the Blue Jays bench. That pitch is a strike. Because of R.A. Dickey and his problems, the bench of the Blue Jays are all over Mark Wegner, and he's not going to take it.
Peter Finch.
Well, Pillar did steal the base. Colon knew what he was doing to try to hold him close. Usually don't see a steal of third with 2 outs and the hitter at the plate, but Pillar is one of those guys that will steal at any time, and he gets it easily as d'Arnaud fumbles the ball. Gets a big jump, and he can fly.
He can fly. He got 3 hits last night and 2 RBIs with a home run. So Colon is a little bit of struggling here with his command. He's not missing by much. He's just got to find the range. Very shallow outfield, the Mets.
Hit the left field. Can Mayberry get there? He can. The long-legged Mayberry Jr. catches that ball in left field for a big out for Bartolo Colon and the Mets. Oh, he's still. Toronto scores a run, winning 1-0. Back here in the top of the third, R.A. Dickey's got a lead for the first time as the Blue Jays punched one across in the bottom of the second inning, facing Juan Lagares. And I mentioned what Terry Collins said about Lagares' elbow, that they do not want him making any unnecessary throws, which is, being a Gold Glove center fielder, that's what made him not only going and getting the ball, Keith, but his throwing was as good as any I've ever seen.
Well, he's been a little banged up, swinging the bat great, but this is the joker in the deck right here of all the pitchers in both leagues. The knuckleball. It's the wild card. Just don't know what's going to happen.
It's the third slow one R.A. Dickey has thrown, fouled back by Lagares, is due to on deck. Ground ball up the middle. Goins playing, doesn't have to move. 4-3 in the scorecard. Well, it's a beautiful shot of the CN Tower, Canadian National Tower, 553 meters high. And John DeMarsico,
brave.
Our crew video of the week, enjoying the city. John, whenever he's in any city, is always doing something. I cannot do that. He's a brave young man.
So we asked Big John as Duda flies out to right, or actually right center, and Pilar is going to catch this. Being the son of a fireman, I asked John, was he scared when he looked down?
Yeah.
And he said no, he was so high up it looked like a watercolor. Didn't look real. But I remember my father saying, I remember asking Dad, when you go up in the ladder, you have to skip people out of these tall buildings. What do you do? He goes, I tell them not to look down, because when you're rescuing someone, they have to look. Don't you tell them first thing, let me take you down, and don't look down. Look straight ahead. So all you firefighters out there, I'm sure you're aware of that.
John was on the edge walk, it's called. It's the highest external walk on a building in the world. So, John, we praise you for being so brave and getting that crew video of the week. That's pretty cool. I think that when I was in my 20s, I easily could have done that, but I can't anymore. I've got vertigo now.
I would not have any desire. I'm not that brave. You know, sometimes those parachutes don't open, you know.
R.A. Dickey slips, but still foul ball from Kadire as the count stays at 2-2. Oh, here's a Coors Light cold hard facts on Toronto, Canada. It's its largest city. Babe Ruth hit his first of many home runs. Third largest percentage of immigrants in the world behind Miami and Dubai. And insulin is diabetes and the whoopee cushion. You can't get any different than that. My son is a type 1 diabetic. I think he would thank Toronto for both of those. The insulin and the whoopee cushion. Another walk here by R.A. Dickey. His 5th of the game. Boy, it's interesting to watch R.A. because we haven't seen him in a while. We remember him in a Mets uniform, and I don't know if I've ever seen him angrier on a mound. You can see his face is flushed. And he feels like he's not getting any of the close pitches from home plate umpire Mark Wegner.
I don't think that was just not a good pitch.
If we were on the bench, Keith, we'd be screaming at RA, stop begging.
Oh, but that would be there'd be some serious bench jockeying going on, as it used to be called.
There's John Gibbons, teammate of ours in 1984, #1 pick of the New York Mets, and was on his way to being the main catcher for the Mets in '84 until the last day of spring training. Joe LaFay for the Philadelphia Phillies ran him over at home plate, broke his chin, and that was that.
I forgot about that. You're right.
If John had not gotten hit, he would have been the #1 catcher in '84, and maybe you don't trade for #8, Gary Carter, the next season.
Second tour of duty as manager for the Blue Jays.
Dickey's knuckleball, for the most part, has been up in the strike zone. That should prove fatal later. Hasn't so far. Wilmer Flores on deck.
The knuckleball can sort of mesmerize you, and when you've got someone that can throw it at different speeds, they can sneak up on you.
But this one by Travis d'Arnaud, as it's either walks or strikeouts, it seems so far for R.A. Dickey, as the Blue Jays winning 1-0. Keith, what do you think of this? The pitcher, like, keeping the umpire hostage almost.
This is a long conversation here, and it's the second inning. The last inning, folks, he kind of stopped by and had a few words to say, but this one was prolonged. And I don't know. I just don't think there's any benefit to that.
I can tell you, I started, what, 400 games or so in the major leagues. I never had a conversation with an umpire that lasted more than 3 seconds. If you had one of those, they would be all over you. But Wegner took it and listened. Reyes' idol was Roberto Alomar, who had some amazing years here in a Blue Jays uniform. I always consider, when I played against him, the best player with Ken Griffey Jr. in the game. He could do it all. I know for you Mets fans out there, Gary Cohen always tells me that Alomar's year as a Met were not very good, but they were very good here. He had the big home run against Eckersley in Oakland in 1992 that changed that entire series and propelled them into the World Series for their first title. Ball hit straight up in the air by Jose Reyes. Lucas Duda camps under it, makes the play.
He just missed that one. That was right down Broadway.
It's interesting, when the roof closed here, all the players were getting a lot of fly balls and pop-ups trying to see what it looked like. This is probably the easiest dome I've ever been to catch a pop-up, because the roof is blackish. A lot of the other domes were white, the roofs. It made it difficult to catch the baseball.
Well, the first dome ever came in was the Astrodome. When they first had it, they had grass the first season, and they couldn't do it because there wasn't enough sunlight and the grass died.
There's Donaldson with a hit to right field. Inside out swing from Donaldson for a base hit.
But to get a little bit of sunlight at the dome for the grass, they had a glass ceiling, and it was like a pie wedge, because the dome was circular, so it was like a wedge of pie that was clear, and if the pop-up went into that area, you lost the ball, or it was whitish, and you lost the ball. It was nothing but trouble, so they had to go to AstroTurf.
Fastball away for a ball from Colon. Usually play base to base when the Blue Jays get into this part of their order, because of the unbelievable power that Donaldson and Bautista have.
That's that ball in. You go in there at your own peril.
You know, it's interesting. At 98, Keith, he said, against Syndergaard, he was able to pull that for a home run. At 88, a little slower. Hard to keep it fair.
And got out front. There's Noah.
So again, the Blue Jays have done a lot of complaining about the pitches in this 2-game homestand against the Mets. Bautista thought that ball was down.
I thought it clipped the knees.
That's the one pitch Colon has not been able to get, is that fastball down and away to righties, down and into lefties. Might have slipped on that one as he checks his cleats. Good changeup. First one we've seen from Colon. Pitches him inside, makes him worried about inside, and then comes back with a changeup, Keith.
And tries to expand intentionally the strike zone, not throwing a strike there. And got a big shift coming over as Tejada's moving out into right field from his third base position.
Well, it's the right thing to do. Tejada knows how to play on that right side of the diamond. probably the best fielder of all four. So have him playing the deepest.
'91 threw it by Smoke there.
Well, there's a time Smoke, Mitch Moreland, and Chris Davis were all in the Texas farm system, all highly regarded. Mitch Moreland stayed. Davis, of course, playing his great baseball for the Orioles, and Smoke has moved around and now here in Toronto. Chris Colabello on deck.
This game's kind of meandering around because both pitchers are struggling to find their command. A lot of pitches.
Again, fastball right there, catches. Smoke looking. At the end of the third, the Blue Jays still 1-0 over the Mets. Well, for all the moaning and groaning that R.A. Dickey has talked to home plate umpire Mark Wegner, he hasn't given up a hit here, and the Mets haven't scored a run in 17 innings.
He's given up 5 walks. The Mets have left 5 men on base, left the bases loaded in the second, excuse me.
Ground ball to third base. Nice play by Donaldson. You know, the Blue Jays have had a long time before they were in the playoffs, but in 1993, this was one of the biggest home runs ever in their team's history. Joe Carter off Mitch Williams in the 1993 World Series.
Oh, every kid's dream, huh? A walk-off Game 7 home run.
Tom Cheek, touch them all, Joe. You'll never hit a better home run. Joe Carter, who was drafted in 1981 by the Chicago Cubs, traded to the Padres and finally found a home in Toronto.
Of course, Mitch Williams just had a horrific World Series. He got hit, got batted around. They traded him in the offseason. Lee Thomas was the GM back then for the Phillies, and they traded Mitch Williams after that season. Didn't want to bring him back. His World Series was just so awful.
Well, recently they had a dinner for those 1993 Phillies. The slow knuckleball from R.A. Dickey gets Mayberry, and Mitch Williams and Lenny Dykstra ended up getting into a real argument. Not for any of you guys under 18. There's Cito Gaston. People forget sometimes what a great hitter he was for the San Diego Padres, but he was the manager of those two teams in '92 and '93.
It was painful to watch that video, Ron, of Lenny and Mitch Williams. So I watched it once. A friend of mine sent it to me. Yeah. It's on YouTube, and I watched it once, and I was just in disbelief.
I mean, we talk about our old career up here in the booth because it's part of our job, but sometimes you got to let it go, boys. Those days are over. Line drive from Tejada to center field right to Kevin Pillar for the final out here, and Dickey still has not given up a hit through 4 innings to the Mets as the Blue Jays lead the Mets 1-0.
Touch them all, Joe. You'll
Chris Colabello hitting the first pitch up the middle. Flores retreats and makes a strong throw to first base for 1 pitch and 1 out here for Cologne in the bottom of the 4th.
Well, unearned run is the difference in this ball game right now. That was the error, leadoff error made by Dilson Herrera in the 2nd, and that run wound up scoring.
You definitely see it when Jonathan Neese is pitching, but the errors seem to hurt the Mets each and every time.
So isn't it amazing? You had a red hot lineup here of the Blue Jays coming into New York to play the Mets, and now this is the 2nd game, and outside of young Akil Morris, they got what, 5 runs off him.
That's right.
The Mets pitching has stymied this offense.
Ground ball right by Tejada for a single as Russell Martin fakes the attempt to go to second base.
Ball just got under the glove of Ruben.
Interesting, Ruben's playing at the cutout. He could have been playing a little deeper. That ball was hit sharply, though.
Just out of his reach. See Ruben's glove right there in the hot corner. I used to always, when I had to hold a runner on, I would have my glove down on the ground facing home plate, and in between, right straddling my 2 feet.
So that way you could move it
I had a
laterally.
lot of ground
way.
balls that were hit so hard that my glove wasn't there. It was through my legs. Only on turf.
Carrera with a foul ball into the stands in left field. Carrera's a guy that has moved around. He's got great speed. We saw him with an outstanding bunt that he pulled towards the first base line and beat the pitcher to the bag, Jonathan Neese. There's another attempted bunt. The Blue Jays were out here before the game for about a half hour with Kevin Pillar, with Ezekiel Carrera, and others working on their bunting for base hits.
Well, you think that you can bunt on Colon? Think twice. Colon fields his position. He's a lot like the former Cub, Rick Russell, who were not the best bodies in the world, but were quick as cats off that mound. Colon is quick.
Good swing by Carrera. Base hit up the middle. Russell Martin goes and stops at second. 2 balls hit hard here by the Blue Jays as they continue to stir the pot.
This ball's up, right down the pipe. Almost got the umpire. And there's been the Met killer here. 3 for 4 last night. Kevin Pillar is having a good night tonight. 1 for 1 and an RBI and a stolen base. So he's had a nice series.
It's almost like he's trying to make up for the mistake he made on the bases in the second game of that series in Citi Field. See Colon pointing. He wants to see who's covering the bag on a comebacker to try to get a double play. Adding a little there by Colon. His 91-mile-an-hour fastball in the corner. There's the Blue Jays offense ranks this year. Well, 3rd in average, but home runs, everything else, Keith, is huge.
And you got to take into consideration the batting average higher. It's always higher in the American League without the pitchers hitting the DH, of course.
Fastball nailed right at Flores and almost like it went through his glove.
Wow, that's the second ball that was hit on a high chopper off the mound for Herrera that he missed. And I got is this a knuckleball?
It's just the line drive right at Wilmer, who jumps and the ball drops at the end. Somehow ruled the hit.
I think he might have looked at the runner for a double play too quick. I don't know, but he certainly missed it.
Knuckleball could be the key, but he jumped for it like it was going to be over his head. It ended up only about head high, and he had the glove right in front of his face, lost control of that baseball, and a base hit for the Blue Jays as they load the bases.
They gave him the base hit?
They did.
He's looking at second base on this ball. He's looking for double play before he caught it.
Oh, so he's not looking the ball in the glove, and that's why he missed the play.
And I'm sorry, if I was his scorekeeper, I'd have to rule that in E6. This is the big leagues. That ball's got to be caught.
Well, pitch and catch, that's part of the game, isn't it? 9th place hitter Ryan Goins comes up with 1 out and the bases loaded.
Tough guy to double up quick. And let's watch Colon work here. And you see the defense here in at the corner, one corner in. Outfield is not playing deep, and this is a tough spot for Colon. This is when I like to watch him pitch, folks. Is focus on how he's going to attack this hitter. It's obviously a big out.
Gets ahead of him first with a strike. There's a few options you have here as a pitcher. You can get the strikeout, pop up, the double play ball, which is tough because Goins has great speed, but the comebacker can produce a double play. Pitcher to home to first.
He's just looking for it. An RBI situation. You take 2 fastballs on the outside corner. That comment was brought to you by DirecTV.
They're not going to say that. They belong to that comment.
Tried to see if he'd fish out there. Pitch to waste. Boy, if you're pitching, Ronnie, you got to say, okay, hey, I'm 0-2. I threw 2 outside corner foul. He didn't swing the bat. Thank you very much.
You do, but I think that was the setup. He's got to get the strikeout. So the pitch he has that he has not made all evening long has been that fastball in. Can he make it now? Goes back outside. That was more of his two-seamer. That ball was running. Colon is so intelligent on that mound. That pitch that he usually throws inside to the lefties has not mastered it yet in this game and seems to be staying away from it. Got to make a pitch here, though. 2-2. Don't want to go to a full count.
Right.
Pitcher steps off in that situation. What he's really doing is he's a little in between what he wants to throw. He wants to reboot this at bat. There's a ground ball to Duda at first to shortstop to Flores, who's taken out at second base by Kevin Pillar.
Well done.
This is old-fashioned baseball here, Keith.
Perfect feed from Duda. Let's watch the takeout. That's perfectly clean. That is a clean slide.
They always judge, can you touch the base? He can.
A lot of times you see the shortstop come and jump out of the way. But that's a tough chance right there. Good hard-nosed baseball. So really this should be an unearned run. Just that base hit off the glove of the line drive off the glove of Flores. Thought should have been ruled an error.
Well, Colon got his ground ball, but Mets not able to turn two. Hard slide by Pillar prevented that. Reyes with a line drive to right field. Bowen stops at second base, but Ezekiel Carrero scores the third Blue Jays run as Reyes drives in a run.
Well, 2 runs in here. Unfortunate. First pitch, a sinker that he wanted to get away more, did not. Reyes all over it. Big 2-out RBI. All of a sudden it's 3-0. So inning should have been over.
Keith, it seems so uncanny how the Mets this year, with failed defensive plays, have not been able to get out of the inning without giving up unearned runs. So maybe earned runs here because it was considered a hit. Key when you play at this level is it's a 27-out game. If you're giving a team with a good offense 29, 30, 31 outs, these are the things that happen.
Well, defense is such an important part of the game, Ron, and it's always when you look in the pick up the sport page in the morning and you read about the game. A lot of times it goes unnoticed. Little important things that happen, and it's usually early in the game. And all the runs count, but Mets have just kind of hurt themselves tonight.
And if Flores makes that play, it's a double play at second base, and all the pitches that Bartolo Colon has thrown after that in this inning would not be thrown. In today's pitch count game, that matters. Blue Jays offense is the kind of offense that seems to kind of just wear you down. The Mets pitchers have pitched extremely well in the first 3 games, but He's not an easy out in the lineup. What did you say before the series started, Keith? That Donaldson was the steal of the winter, getting him from Oakland. Told you I was talking to him today. Shook his hand, told him he plays the game like you like to watch a guy play the game. Hard-nosed. Been a hard-nosed inning for these Blue Jays. They've gotten a couple of breaks, but Kevin Pillar's slide, who knows if they would have turned a double play anyway, but that's a slide you don't see much anymore.
Well, they've got speed, and surprisingly, it's at the bottom of the order. Pillar and Goins are their fastest guys.
And Reyes.
And Reyes, of course.
Base hit to right field again by Donaldson, his second hit of the game. Not only drives in Goins, here comes Reyes, who's held up by Luis Rivera, the third base coach. So Donaldson with a double.
Well, big two-out rally here. And a very unfortunate inning for the Mets and Bartolo. He deserves better fate here. But give the Blue Jays credit. They've gotten hits after the mishaps in the field.
And a hitter who's used to pulling the ball and hitting home runs decides to have a game plan against Cologne. Now has 2 hits to right field. Does Donaldson. Reyes on third, Donaldson on second base for the Blue Jays. This is one case where you have 2 outs, a base open, a veteran pitcher on the mound, and you're going to allow him to pitch to Bautista because you know he's going to pitch around the periphery of the plate. If you had a younger pitcher, you probably would intentionally walk him here to face Smoke. Ground ball up the middle, past Flores again. And Reyes and Donaldson will both score. And the Blue Jays have broken this open.
Well, Ron, you said it. You cannot, Major Leagues, you got 27 outs. You can't give a team 1 extra out. The Mets have given 2. We're very generous in giving 2 extra outs to the Blue Jays, and give them credit. 3 straight 2-out RBI base hits.
Well, we've seen this team erupt last night when they had those 5 runs off the youngster Akil Morris. As Ruben Tejada now will get in the shift against Justin Smoke. They have to hold up the game for him to get out there.
9th batter in the inning.
But they can put up a crooked number with the best of them.
And this inning should have been over a long time ago with zip runs.
No, that's what FIP is all about, right? Fielding, independent pitching. There's Logan Verrett, the new guy, number 35. Just called up by the Mets from Las Vegas. Akil Morris, we were talking about earlier, was sent down, and Verrett took his place. Number 35 was Dylan G's number. I know a lot of folks are going to be saying, how could they give Dylan G's number away already? Logan Verrett, that is his number, and he asked for that number when he got to the ballpark today.
He asked for it.
He did.
Wow.
There used to be a day you would not ask for a number from a clubby or a clubhouse manager.
Oh, only the veterans.
Again, Colon strikes out Smoke for the 3rd time, but the damage is done. The Blue Jays put up 5 runs, and they now lead 6-0 against the Mets. tastes like real iced tea. Bartolo Colon signed his first professional contract in 1993. The last time the Blue Jays made the postseason, Dilson Herrera was not even born yet. 1993, I was still playing.
I was retired.
Not very good, but I was still playing. Colon should have had a 0 in that inning. Ends up with 5 earnings.
It should have been an error scored on the line drive, and all 5 runs would have been unearned, and he would have had 6 runs in and all unearned. That's a good knuckleball right there. That was his best one he's thrown.
Is the age of the active players, oldest to the youngest. LaTroy Hawkins, former Met, Bartolo Colon at 42.
Pitchers dominating the oldest.
Roberto Osuna pitches here for the Blue Jays, and Carlos Correa. What a day he had today. There were some day games, and the Rockies got killed by the Houston Astros 8-4. Correa hit a 2-run home run in his first at bat, and then became the second youngest player ever to steal 3 bases. Second youngest ever since Ricky Henderson, as Donaldson puts that one away. Mets offense in the 5th has not scored in 18 innings, and they still have not gotten a base hit off R.A. Dickey. Ari was wild early, but he seems like he's harnessed that knuckleball. He started this broadcast with the 2 hitters that he threw back-to-back in a Mets uniform. Patented R.A. putting his arms up, kind of to make the uniform less taut. One of the rare fastballs from R.A. Dickey on the 3-0 count. Now 3-1. Another fastball hammered by Lagares, and that's the Mets' first hit from their hottest hitters. Lagares legs out a double. Stops at second base. Smart play.
Well, Juan continues to swing a good bat here, driving that ball. Line drive. Like to see the line drives. It's a fastball, Ron.
Fastball, 3-1 count. So now Lagares with a 9-game hitting streak. This ball splits the defense. Big shift put on from the Blue Jays against Lucas Duda. I always find it funny against a knuckleball pitcher to have a shift, because you have no idea really where the ball's going. And R.A. might.
Well, he's a soft tosser. Maybe they feel that everybody out in front, more chance to pull.
Fly ball to left field from Lucas Duda, and carrying, where Chris Caldwell corrals it in for the 3rd out. And the Mets still on the back end of a 6-0 score. Blue Jays. We're at the Rogers Center in Toronto. Colon back on the hill.
Well, 6 runs, and Colon has been a victim of shoddy play behind him. Although he did not get out of that jam. The Blue Jays hit 3 rockets, 2-out rockets after to score a couple runs, 4 runs.
Colabello with a long shot to right field. That's a home run to make it 7-0 now. Wow. Tremendous power from Colabello the other way.
I apologize there, Ron. I did not think that ball was going out.
Well, they said that the ball carries in this ballpark, especially when the dome's closed.
Slider, he stays right with it, and that shows some pop right there. No doubt. I did not think it was going out.
That's his 5th home run of the season. You were talking about the defense, Keith, but Bartolo's been hit hard in this game also.
He has been. I think right now Terry wants just to get another inning out of him.
Ground ball sharply hit to the left of Tejada from his knees, makes the throw to get Martin as Duda comes off the bag for the tag. I think Ruben Tejada enjoys fielding on this turf, Keith.
Well, he's got good hands. Very nice play, nice throw from the knees, little hand grenade.
Well, you know what's good about it? He got rid of it quickly, so it allowed Duda to come off the bag with the tag.
Yeah, get it in the vicinity.
Little dance step there by Russell Martin.
I think that's going to be it for Bartolo.
Terry Collins coming out to get Big Bart. As it'll be a call to the bullpen from Terry Collins, presented by Verizon, and it'll be Alex Torres for the Mets as the Mets are trailing 7-0. Well, the bottom of the 5th here at Rogers Center, and Bartolo Colon out of the game and Alex Torres in.
Well, all the youngsters out in that bullpen have been doing a terrific job. It's the veterans that have been struggling in this pen a little bit. Carlos Torres, Alex Torres has had control issues.
Very unusual pitcher. Gets right-handers out, struggles against left-handers. Here's Bartolo Colon's line.
Not a good day at the office.
No.
82 pitches.
If the Mets don't come back, he will have 26 straight decisions. That'll set a franchise record. Dwight Gooden went 25 straight starts with a decision. It'll be 26 for Cologne. Well, we saw it last night, Keith. This Toronto Blue Jays team, when they get it rolling, they can put up a crooked number and score a lot of runs, and they don't have to be via home run. Only one tonight.
Well, they seem to like the home cooking here, that's for sure. They play well at home. They're 21 and 10 coming in, I believe, at home. Well, Sunday on Jets Nation here from Todd Bowles and his expectations for the team both on and off the field this season. Plus, get an inside look at Muhammad Wilkerson's unique off-season workout on an all-new Jets Nation Sunday at 8:30 p.m. only on SNY.
Kevin Pillar up for the Blue Jays. He's been the MVP in this mini 2-game series here in Toronto. Fastball poured in for a strike. The Blue Jays now offense has scored 377 runs so far this season. That's 72 more than any other team. Biggest gap in runs since 1953. That ball jams Pillar as he flies out lazily to center field. Juan Lagares as Torres gets a couple of outs, but still 7-0 Blue Jays. Top of the 6th here for the New York Mets with Michael Kadire leading off. Only one hit for the Mets against R.A. Dickey so far. I had a feeling coming in that R.A. Dickey was going to produce an A game right away. That ball popped up to the outfield. Center fielder Kevin Pillar calls off Colabello. to make the catch. Let's check in with Steve Gelbs downstairs.
Well, Ron, there was a lot of talk, especially yesterday, about the AstroTurf here at Rogers Center. But there's a good chance the next time the Mets are up here in Toronto, they'll be playing on real grass. The Blue Jays making a real push to get that grass in here, preferably by opening day 2018. They've commissioned a study, a year-long study, with the University of Guelph up here in Ontario to figure out if it is feasible to get real grass grown at the Rogers Center. But beyond that, even if it is feasible, there were some hurdles that had to be jumped, and one of the big ones is now out of the way. Right now, Rogers Center, it's a dual stadium for the Blue Jays, as d'Arnaud lines out there to Reyes. Nice play there by Jose Reyes, but it's a dual stadium with the Toronto Argonauts of the CFL and the Toronto Blue Jays. And when the Argonauts play, the stands here in the lower bowl, they open up out, and you see underneath the stadium there are rollers that the stands open up out on. Now, if that were to happen with real grass, it would totally destroy the grass. So Rogers Center and the Blue Jays, they have told the Argonauts they are not renewing their lease at the end of 2017, which paves the way for real grass here and no football team.
Well, that's not going to be great for the Argonauts. They'll be playing outside in tough conditions. It's quite a play by Reyes on d'Arnaud.
The Houston Astrodome also had, remember that was with the Cardinals.
Yeah.
The Houston Oilers played in the Dome, had a night game after we played a day game against the Astros, and it was a getaway day for us. It was a Sunday, so it was a Sunday night game, and we kind of hung around and watched. They had a similar thing, that stands were on rollers like that, and watched them totally. We didn't get to see the whole thing, but transform the stadium to a football stadium. It was quite interesting, and believe it or not, we knew that the Astrodome was full of rats. You knew that.
Yeah.
Rats came scurrying out of the cover.
That's gross. RFK Stadium in Washington also is one that had their stands on rollers as Flores hits the ball foul down the left field line. You know, growing grass, though, in these dome stadiums has always proven to be tough. You know, the grass in Arizona the first couple of years, they almost lost it. Got to have not only the right kind of grass, how much sun to get on it, how much water to get on it. But I always prefer grass over the AstroTurf, although playing on this AstroTurf, I think because there's only two left here in Tampa Bay, has got to give this Blue Jays team an advantage.
Nice at bat from Flores there.
Line drive to right field from Wilmer Flores.
Had good swings that entire at bat. Second hit for the Mets.
John Mayberry Jr., who got the start in left field tonight. Michael Gedire, the DH. Dickey for a rare time in the stretch with a strike. There's Liam Hendricks, who we've seen a couple of times out of that Blue Jays bullpen getting loose. The ball pulled foul from Mayberry. We thought last night that Drew Hutchinson was pitching a pretty good game. Thought maybe a quick hook with 5 2/3 scoreless innings, but he had 105 pitches. 105 is the magic number. There's Drew. We always look at the trade from the New York Mets side, getting Syndergaard and d'Arnaud. Wonder how that plays up here in Toronto. As Mayberry, a drive to right center field, but Carrera with the catch, and it ends the 6th inning where the Mets only have 2 hits and they're losing 7-0 to the Blue Jays. Well, it's the best online source for Mets information with a constant flow of Mets news and opinion featuring game breakdowns, special features, and player profiles. Mets blog presented by Citi, part of the SNY.TV blog network. Bottom of the sixth with Alex Torres pitching against the ninth place hitter Ryan Goins. Ground ball up the middle, backhanded by Dilson Herrera. That makes the out at first base. One pitch, one out. Nothing better than the pitcher. They say that double play is great. One pitch, one out is pretty good too.
For the pitcher, not the hitter.
Well, you never made an out on the first pitch, first at bat.
No, because I usually took like 98% of the time.
Reyes had a big hit in the fourth inning to drive in a run. He is 1 for 3.
Jose has had a tough time of it in this series. I think he's got 2 hits in the 4 games. Big RBI hit in the 4th inning in that 5-run fourth.
Another ball hit down the right field line. It stays fair. And it'll be a ground rule double for Reyes.
Oh, the umpire called it. The guy leaned over. That's his judgment.
There's no foul territory once you get deep into right field.
I have a hunch that the Mets are going to have a look at this.
And that ball, as it was dropping, a fan reached over and caught it. I don't know how you can call that ball fair. I'd be all over the umpire for that one. But double in the books for Reyes. Hands up in the air for Alex Torres.
Terry's going to have a gripe here.
It's just not a call you can make if you're a first base umpire Mike Winters. I mean,
it's a home team, and you can't, it should be penalized for that. And it's fan interference.
Balls hit down the right field line. It's going to be curving towards the stands. It's a long reach.
And they're going to.
And Terry's going to
appeal it.
I mean, it's going to be hard to get the right camera angle to see that play, but it's at least 3 to 4 feet away from the fans. He's got to have an awfully long arm to make that play in fair territory. This shouldn't take long because I don't think they're going to have a great view of it. Here's our best view of it.
They're going to get. You don't know how many camera angles they're going to be looking at in New York.
Look at the home feed. They look at our feed. They look at every feed to try to make the right call. This is the Mazda play under review. Mike Winters, who's the crew chief, has the headset on along with home plate umpire Mark Wegner.
This is going to take some time here.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of different looks at that ball. But, whenever a right-hander hits the ball to right field, right-handed hitter, the ball is going to be working its way towards the foul line, not away from the foul line. And that's why this fan was able to make the catch. That is a long reach. I don't know if it's in fair territory, though. It's just an unusual call by Mike Winters. You usually just call that a no play. Call it foul. Give the fan a baseball. Good challenge by Terry.
Is it going to be conclusive? That's the thing. There's not a whole lot of space down there.
There's not a lot of space all the way down. If you go all the way to the foul line, there's no space.
And Jose is awarded the double.
He gave it to him. like there'd be a fly in the dugout to hear what Terry's saying about that play. Minute and 45 it took for that Mazda review. 2 hits now for Reyes in this game. See if Donaldson changes his choice here against Cologne. He had 2 hits to right field. See if he's in more of a pull mode here against Alex Torres.
Uh-oh. Bye-bye.
If you catch a ball, you got to go home.
That guy's kind of big. I've got to send a platoon down there to get him out.
He went pretty easily, didn't he? Donaldson has had a interesting career. Started out as a catcher, then converted into a third baseman. What I find funny is that his teammate behind him, Jose Bautista, he learned how to hit by watching some tape on Bautista. And Donaldson's become one of the more dangerous outs in the American League.
It looks like they're going to run that guy out of the ballpark, and I'm telling you, you should just tell him, hey, you paid your money to be at the ballpark. There's the new reliever just called up,
Logan Verrett, sorry.
The guy paid his money for his seat. You know, just tell him, hey, in the future, you don't interfere like that.
A fan just caught that 10 rows back. They just gave him a triple, so Reyes just scored. No. Good change up there from Alex Torres. Catches the corner and catches Donaldson looking. Let's go to Janae Coakley in the studio for a game break. Brought to you by Honda.
What a game.
Thanks a lot, Janae. As Jose Bautista comes to the plate here with 2 outs and Reyes on second. That's really the strength for Alex Torres. If you look at his numbers, that great changeup, more like a screwball, is really his strength against the right-handed hitter. Bautista reminds me a little bit of Raul Ibanez, not because of the way they hit, but Ibanez, who had a fantastic career. You can see his home runs from 2010 to 2015. Started his career a little late. He didn't find his game. He didn't find the ability to hit home runs until later in his career. Same with Ibanez. Ibanez did not become a complete player until he was in his later 20s. Well, first player to lead the AL in home runs, walks, slugging percentage, and OPS since 1942. Teddy Ballgame.
That's something to hang your hat on.
After going 3-0, Alex Torres is going to intentionally walk Jose Bautista. Cologne, remember, did not walk him in his last at bat when he drove in 2. Justin Smoke against Torres. He'll be hitting from the right side now, a switch hitter. So much promise early in his career to have a switch hitting first baseman, but it hasn't all come together for Smoke, who has 3 strikeouts in this game, all against Cologne. Tomorrow, Keith and I will be with you in Atlanta as the Mets take on the Braves. Here's the pitchers for that series: DeGrom, Syndergaard, and Harvey. It doesn't get much better than that.
Well, they got the big guns opening.
Yeah, they really do.
DeGrom opening that 3-game series, and that's a 5 o'clock start on Sunday. Matt Harvey, a very peculiar starting time for a Sunday game.
I think because of the ESPN window, you got to play before their game starts at 8 o'clock Eastern, so you got to play some time before 5. Usually you play at 1 on Sunday afternoon, but the Braves chose 5. As Jacob.
Be the final round of the U.S. Open. Very interesting golf course.
Real, right? Dustin Johnson was my choice. So far, so good. He's been playing well.
First time they've ever had a U.S. Open in the Pacific Northwest. They had it in San Francisco. They never had one, I believe, in Washington.
Not a U.S. Open. Okay,
yep.
Yeah, because I know they had a PGA Championship in Sahali, which is in Seattle, Washington. But this is on the Puget Sound near Tacoma. Fouled again by Smoke as Alex Torres gets the count even. Chris Colabelo's had a nice game. 1 for 3. That one hit, a home run. His 5th of the season. After that Sunday game for the Mets, when they hit 4 home runs, the offense has been a little stagnant again these last 4 days. Shutout last night. 2 hit tonight. A Smoke smokes that ball to left center field. Lagares is going to run it down, though, as he makes the catch in deep left center field to end this inning for Torres and the New York Mets. Beautiful skyline and that CN Tower that John DeMarsico almost fell off of today.
It would have been a terrible loss.
Well, R.A. Dickey has stayed in this game since throwing 31 pitches in the second inning. He's thrown 18, 9, 13, and 16 to stay in here now in the 7th inning.
Got to believe this. If he has a clean inning, it's his last inning.
Liam Hendriks still up in the bullpen, and that's Phil Koch, the much traveled Phil Koch from the left side. Has had some good swings also off R.A. Dickey.
Koch is the only pitcher that hasn't been used in this 4-game series.
And some of his best years with the Detroit Tigers as Herrera awaits on deck. Ground ball to shortstop to Reyes. And that bullet for an arm.
Yeah, a little
first out of the inning.
Make you think you can beat it out and tantalizing you, tempting you. Very sadistic.
Steve Gelbs was talking about rollers. Gary just sent you something about Shea Stadium was on rollers, right?
Shea Stadium evidently was on rollers. Just got a text from our buddy. Oh, jeez.
Meadowlands already.
I got interrupted. The race must come first. But anyway, the Jets, Shea was on rollers. And Gary said the Jets couldn't play a home game until the baseball season was over because it would ruin the grass.
So they wouldn't play like their home game until like the 4th game of the season, 5th game of the season?
I'm just the messenger here.
Wow.
That's a little unfair to play 4 games on the road. Is that true, Gary?
Logan Verrett still throwing a whole game down there in the bullpen. Another ball on the ground to Reyes. And bullet again over to first base for 2 outs here in the top of the 7th.
Boy, Herrera got down that line. He almost beat that.
Dickey has gotten stronger as the game has gone on. Let's check in with Steve.
Ron, Curtis Granderson has 33 career plate appearances against R.A. Dickey, only 5 hits. He said what makes Dickey so much more difficult than an average knuckleballer is the fact that he does throw the ball in the low 80s, and that really takes away the approach of if it's high, let it fly, if it's low, let it go. Because the pitch is thrown with that velocity, there are times where the high pitch stays high.
Well, that's what he did so effectively when he won the 20 games, Ronnie.
Yeah, that was the pitch right there that Steve was talking about.
It tends to stay straight, but he was so perfect throwing it up and in on hitters.
Well, another strikeout. And R.A. Dickey's night might be done, but if it is, 7 scoreless, only 2 hits. ever win an MVP award? Good question.
That is a good question.
I think I know who. I think I saw him in the building today, in fact. Well, new to the building here is Logan Verrett, Mets pitcher, who was a Rule 5 draftee this winter by the Baltimore Orioles. He didn't stick with them, but was claimed off waivers from the Texas Rangers, who had him up for 4 appearances in April before they designated him for assignment. The Mets picked him up, sent him to Las Vegas, in 11 games and 4 starts. He did awfully well. Terry Collins was talking about Logan before the game, said he's a strike thrower, good breaking ball. 11-5 for the 51s last season. He's got a little experience, so it's more than Akil Morris had last night, and he had to face the heat of the Blue Jays lineup. And there's that good breaking ball from Verrett.
Little slide ball here.
Colabello way out in front. Boy, fastball right on the corner for strike 3. Nice sequence of pitches by Verrett. You can see the numbers for tonight's starters from People's United Bank. Just a tough night for Bartolo Colon. Looked like he was out of that 1 inning, but ended up being hit hard and giving up 7 runs, 6 of them earned. And R.A. Dickey, after a tough start as far as the walks were concerned, 5 walks, settled down, only gave up 2 hits and no runs in 7 innings. I was saying to you folks before, if you weren't listening, that Logan Verrett asked for number 35 because it's his favorite number. It's the one he's always worn. Although I do find it strange not to see Dylan G in it, right?
Yes.
I mean, the phrase "too soon" you could use.
Well, my number was passed around a little bit.
That ball ripped foul by Russell Martin. Fans, our first post-game concert of the season on Saturday, June 27th, when the Mets play the Reds, featuring legendary classic rock artist Steve Miller Band. It's all presented by Pepsi, and it's all included in the price of your ticket. Purchase tickets online at Mets.com/concerts.
Well, I hope that he plays some of his old stuff back in the 60s.
By the way, all of his stuff is old stuff. Ground ball to Wilmer Flores for the out at first base. I mean, they were huge in the 70s, right? Jet Airliner and other tunes.
I liked his 60s album. It was an album, a double album called Anthology, and
that had a lot of
Space Cowboy,
bluesy kind of stuff on it.
Living in the USA was a really good side of that album that I loved. About 4 or 5 songs in that album that I really liked. So I hope that he plays those 60 songs.
Well, we can get you a good seat, you know.
There's some us old folks are out there listening, you know.
Yeah, Living in the USA is one of my favorite songs. That's a great song.
It is. Space Cowboy is not too bad either. I'm hearing in the truck that it's the Joker, but there was a song on that album that.
Well, that's the title of the song, but that you're talking about the lyrics in the song.
Yes,
Space Cowboy had it. Logan Verrett looking awfully sharp here in the 7th inning.
I'm going to have to look that up. I'm going to do it in commercial break.
Good sinking fastball there from Logan Ferret as he retires the side in order to end the 7th. And the rout is on here in Toronto. Bed gear. Performance bedding of the New York Mets. Get heat and moisture wicking pillows and sheets for more recovery out of the time you spend in bed. Bedgear.com. Sleep fuels everything.
What is going on? Oh, my goodness.
What happens for people like me who don't sleep? Maybe that would help.
Come on, they never cared about us that much when we played. I'm jealous. There was a lot of nights I couldn't sleep. I could have used that pillow.
Funny. Well, R8 out here for this 8th inning and gets a pop-up from Lagares. Donaldson under it, and he makes the play. The Blue Jays lead the majors with 5 complete games. Burley's got 3, of course. Dickey's got 1, and Drew Hutchinson also has 1. Balls and the strikes for R.A. Dickey. For more or mere mortal pitchers, that would be a high pitch count, but R.A. with the knuckleball, you can extend him a little more. Ball hit to right field and deep, and that ball's gone from Lucas Duda. Mets finally get to R.A. Dickey, and it's Lucas Duda.
His 10th home run?
Who hits his 10th home run.
Puts him back in a tie for the team lead with Suarez. Wow, he can't finish the inning because he gave him a home run. Okay.
Well, it's the 76th home run that R.A. Dickey's allowed since he's been in Toronto. That's the most in Major League Baseball. But it's one he could allow tonight, as he was outstanding over 7 innings. And the flip of the cap from R.A. Dickey as he leads with the Blue Jays leading the Mets 7-1. So Liam Hendricks in here to face Michael Kadire. Seen a lot of Hendricks here. He's from Perth, Australia, one of the few Aussies in baseball. There's the line for R.A. Dickey, outstanding.
Well, he beat his old mates. It's my Australian accent.
There you go. High in my book. His dad was an Aussie rules football player, so anyone was tough enough to play that game.
Yes. Remember in the infancy of ESPN back in the 80s?
That's
run?
Right.
All they showed in the weekdays, in the afternoons when there was no ratings, they'd throw it at the Aussie football.
Watch it all the time.
Oh, watch it all. Having lunch at Rusty's on the way before we went to the park.
And imitate the umpire signaling that it was a touchdown or field goal or whatever they did. Remember, they could kick the ball from 60 meters or 60 yards for a point. They said Kadire went. So Kadire down with his second strikeout of the game. Breaking ball, good one here from Hendricks.
I don't think he swung
Today, anything close is a swing.
It's getaway day. Umpire, this crew is probably moving on. Planes the catch. At least Frank Pulley would, the late Frank Pulley would give you a warning. Boys, swing the bats.
And the answer to tonight's Verizon trivia question: who's the only Blue Jay to ever win an MVP award? And George Bell. What that was my.
Oh, I forgot about George. He's a heck of a player.
I believe in 1987. I could be wrong, but one year he opened the season in the first game at Exhibition Stadium with 3 home runs. But I played against George in AAA. The Blue Jays AAA farm system was in Syracuse. In the Mets was in Tidewater, so it was an International League team. Always could hit for power.
Oh, good slider.
I said it was at an Exhibition Stadium in Toronto. It was not. It was in Kansas City. I just saw George here a couple days ago, so they do a good job of having some of their older players here. They had Devon White, George Bell.
When you're a hitter and the knuckleball's out of the game, you breathe a sigh of relief. You get a conventional pitcher in here and you go, my goodness, boys, let's knock this guy out early. Let's get someone that throws a normal baseball.
And a pop up there off the bat of Travis d'Arnaud to the new left fielder Danny Valencia. He makes the catch, and Hendricks is out of the 8th inning with the Blue Jays still winning 7-1. Back here in the bottom of the 8th with Kevin Pillar up against Logan Ferret, who's pitching his 2nd inning of work. Logan pitched 4 days ago. Had a start for the 51s, went 7 2/3, gave up a couple of runs. So really only 3 days rest here for the young Ferret to try to get through 2 innings for the Mets.
Did you hear that update? I had it in my ears. I said that Harper made a throw home in Atlanta and twisted his knee, had to leave the game.
Well, remember, he got hit in his knee about a week ago, missed the game. He got hit in Milwaukee, so you wonder if it's the same knee.
They can ill afford to lose him.
Injuries still plaguing the Nationals. Good breaking ball by Verrett. He's been very impressive in this inning and 3rd of work so far.
Hard slider. Good down tilt.
We say that all the time. That's the key, right? Keep the down tilt, because you see a lot of breaking balls. They break across the plane,
right,
and hitters can handle that easily. You got to have it shown that it's over the middle and then breaking down. That's what gets the hitters to swing over it. Well, coming up on Geico after the post game, Tom Coughlin on a superstar. We got to grab some Molson or Labatt Blue for Mr. Carlin.
How about the 2020? Was it 2020? The green label on the bats?
You can win a trip for 4 to Universal Orlando Resort, where you'll experience the action and fun of 2 amazing theme parks. Plus, stay on site at Universal's Cabana Bay Beach Resort. Just go to sny.tv/Toyota and enter the Toyota Fan Flyaway sweepstakes for your chance to win.
The Labatt's Blue was their light beer, I believe. And no, I don't. I was not.
No, I don't know.
There was a green label that I liked. There was a big ale, heavy beer.
I just remember that when you would have beer in Canada, you had to be very careful because it had more alcohol than American beer.
Okay, they're saying the Labatt's 50.
Well, there you go.
That's the one I liked. That was a big powerhouse. It's like almost like a malt liquor.
Funny the things you remember.
What was it? The Colt 45 malt liquor when that old English.
Reyes' career resume.
Death.
What was the street in Montreal we used to always end up on? Crescent Street, right?
Crescent. That's where Winston Churchill's was, right?
That's right.
I think I saw someone around 2 in the morning laying across the hood of a parked car one night when I pulled out of there.
That's one of those where it'd be better for you not to say his name. Good sinking fastball there from Logan Ferret. One of the greatest things that you have to see when they come to Toronto, and there's many of them, is the Hockey Hall of Fame. Got to see the Stanley Cup. Well, the Mets' last chance here in the top of the ninth, down 6. Wilmer Flores up.
It has not been one of their best efforts collectively. Made some gaffes in the field that open up the floodgates, particularly in that 5-run fourth.
Well, Lucas Duda's home run last inning stopped a streak of 21 innings without the Mets scoring a run. And unless they rally for some runs here, it'll be 15-1 differential in the 2-game series here in Toronto. The Cardinals before last night's game had the biggest run differential in baseball, but the Blue Jays are ready to take that over too. Tomorrow night we're going to be with you in Atlanta, Keith and I, as the Mets take on the Braves. It starts tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. The game will be at 7:30. Presented to you by Jeep.
Gary continues his sabbatical. He's got tenure.
He does have tenure. Call 3rd strike on Flores.
So the Mets get back in division where they played really well, Ron. They've done extremely well in division, so we'll see how it shakes. They're going to play a Brave team that I'm not really impressed with. I think they've been overachieving a little bit, still under 500.
You know, they've played well in division, especially at home, Keith. But with a loss here tonight, they're 10-21 now on the road. So it's just kind of a reversal of what it's been the last few seasons when they've played pretty well on the road and not well at Citi Field. Hendricks just keeps pouring in the strikes. I mean, the old adage is that you try to play 500 on the road and do your best work at home. You push to 10 games over. You hope you're 20 games over by the time you get to September. And Mayberry hits a ball to left field, but off the end of the bat. And that's caught by Danny Valencia. And if you're a championship ball club, at some point you're 30 games or more over 500. Although the Kansas City Royals last year went to within 1 game of the World Series with only 89 wins during the regular season. Tejada representing the final out here for the Mets. Liam Hendricks has been very impressive here for the Blue Jays. Their bullpen has been very impressive the last 2 nights. Oh, hits the bag. Donaldson jumps on it and throws out Tejada at first base, who did not run right away. So in this, a game of Bartolo Colon versus R.A. Dickey, 2 40-plus-year-olds facing each other. First time that's happened since 2008 when Jamie Moyer faced Greg Maddux. It's R.A. Dickey, the ex-Met, who comes through with a fine game, and it's Bartolo Colon who really struggled.
Well, Bartolo had some pretty shoddy defense behind him. You won't see it in the paper tomorrow. I thought that line drive to Flores and that 5-run fourth should have been an error, and they would have been all unearned runs. But he got hit pretty hard. But the Mets did not play a very good game today and deserved their fate.
Well, 7-1 Blue Jays beat the Mets. Keith and I will be back here at Rogers Center with more after this.